Hey, welcome to the Sinner and the Saint. I'm Melissa Bell.
And I'm Allison Kay.
So I'm going to piggyback off of last week. We were talking about just Jesus and grieving Lazarus and what that looked like. And I was in church and the pastor was saying there are two types of people, or specifically in Hebrews 11. There's the God is bigger category, like God is bigger than this situation. Okay.
Yes.
And then there's the God is better, which is God's will is better and where I'm going is better than this place. So I'm going to suffer well.
Gotcha.
Okay. So then talk about a rabbit hole. I've been around you too long.
You know I love a rabbit hole.
I was in your book of all books. You guys, if you've not picked up the 33 Dates with God by Allison T. Kane, it's so great because it's a Lectio book, 33 Dates of Lectio, and I get so much out of it. And so recently I was in, it's date 18, Psalm 27. And it says, Psalm 27, around verse 6, it says, I'm heading for his place to offer anthems that will raise the roof. Already I'm singing God's songs. I'm making music to God. And so we talked about last week.
Can we just say how much we love the Message translation?
The Message translation.
Raise the roof. That's what I'm talking about, people.
And it had me thinking, our life, whether we like it or not, as Christians, is an anthem to the world about God. And so what does your anthem look like? Right? Every single day, everything we encounter, every moment of every day, we can praise God or we can wallow.
Ooh, yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I've done my fair share of both.
We are human after all.
We are human. And I think...
And he's okay with the wallowing, by the way. I would say that.
I think you start with wallowing. I think it's okay. I think that's where I start most of my time, is wallowing with God.
Yeah, David, like we talked about last week, he did that a lot in the Psalms. But it's brief. It's not like days and, then he circles around and he comes back to remembering what God has done and then who God is. So it's what we do with that. If it's for the getting it off your chest and laying it before the Lord, almost confessing it, that's a different story than like wallowing around, using it as an excuse not to do anything, to treat others poorly. That's not okay.
Yes, and so in the Psalm 27, towards the end, I mean, this was very personal to me. It says, my father and mother walked out and left me, but God took me in. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's an emotion I didn't want to experience today. Thank you. But then if you go further up, it says, when my heart whispered, seek God, my whole being replied, I'm seeking him. And it says, you've always been right there for me. And so I took the time to go back and just praise God for how he has always been there for me. Not only that, the world gets to see through me what it's like when God is always there for you.
Isn't it a fun exercise to go back and think about the moments in your life where you either you didn't know God,
correct,
or you weren't really following God or seeking him in any way, and you look back and you realize how much God was with you in those moments, that he was always with you, like in the moments of protection or whatever it was.
I for sure should be
or
dead.
Healing, or people that he placed in your path at just the right time. He is always there. We just don't always recognize it.
I definitely can look back and go, it's a shocker that I'm alive right now. Right? I also wrote that God heals the broken places if we allow him to.
Oh, so true. Allowing him to requires a lot on our part. It requires, what would you say? First, acknowledging that it happened.
Yes.
And he already knows and you already know, but you need to speak it.
Yes.
Out to him and maybe to someone else. What are some other things that you think are so important to make that happen other than the acknowledgement and the turning it over, to God?
Honestly, it's kind of sitting with it and letting it fully sink in.
Right.
And not putting a Jesus sticker on it, as I like to say.
Yep.
I love putting Jesus stickers on things because then I can just go, oh, Jesus took care of that, and move on and not emotionally attach to the healing.
Yes. I wholeheartedly agree. I think we are a society of slapping Jesus stickers on things, or whatever you want to call it. A while back, or several weeks ago, as we were preparing to send our youngest off to college and become empty nesters, I did a post on Instagram, and I think, apparently I made a lot of people cry because they were feeling it. But then I think some people, it was like, why are you so upset? Like, he's got this great opportunity and it's going to be great, and this is the next step. And I'm like, yes, of course. And all of that is wonderful. I'm talking about me.
Right.
He's great. I'm talking about me, and I would be remiss in just fluffing over everything I'm feeling of having been a full-time mom for all those years, my life's work, to all of a sudden becoming a part-time mom. It's like forced retirement, and not dealing with the feelings, the emotions that come with an ending. Yes, this is a new beginning as well, but in every ending, there's grief and there's transition and there's feelings, and acknowledging those, writing them out. Was very intentional about taking the time to write out, whatever. I mean, there were some, this is part of my journal. I'll just throw it out there. I said, I'm not even sure what all the feelings are. I just know they're there and they are real, undefined, but specific feelings of change, transition, not understanding what's next, what life will look like. It will all unravel and be made clear piece by piece and moment by moment. But putting it out there in just even the words that I have.
Right.
Which weren't very many.
Yeah.
But it was something.
I think I recently read somewhere, there's freedom in knowing that grief and joy can coexist.
Absolutely. They can.
I just think about all the different places that we push aside the sad emotion because we just don't want to feel sadness, right? Like if someone passes away, but they were struggling with, illness for a long time. What are we going to tell that person that's grieving?
It's like, well, they're in a better place.
They're in a better place. Well, I'm not.
Right.
I'm still here and this sucks.
Yeah.
Because maybe I've been their caretaker for a long time and now I have lost my identity.
Right.
Not only can I do all the layers too? Like, we need to leave more space for people to grieve.
We do. Yep. It is amazing. And I think I got a little feisty with a few people that I would share with. Shocker. And they would quickly fluff over, oh, but he's going to have the best time and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, newsflash, it's not about him.
Right. We're talking about me.
Again, this is all about me.
Did I try to brush that over for you?
No.
Okay.
No, you were not one of those people. And then I think some people, hopefully I didn't hurt their feelings, but it was like, no, don't do that. Don't do that to me.
Yeah.
Don't dismiss. It felt as if I was being dismissed
Yep.
for having that moment. That's not what that person was trying to do.
Right.
They didn't want me to feel the pain. They wanted me to see the bonus and the beauty, and I do.
Right.
But that still doesn't take away what I'm dealing with.
I think having people that you love hurt is hard. And so oftentimes we want them to not hurt because it's hard for us to watch them hurt. So selfishly,
it's so true.
We want you to see the silver lining, please, because your sadness makes me uncomfortable.
And what about when they throw like the Jesus sticker on it for you?
Oh.
And they're like, but, God just has a plan, and he's, you've worked at blah, blah, and God has, whatever. It's like, yeah, I know. But still.
Yep. This part of
about
the
me
plan sucks.
about me. I still have feelings about this. And I think we can use God as a cover-up.
So, absolutely, because, if I'm not wanting to get into a conversation into the deep, I'll say, oh, I know God's got it worked out.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah, exactly.
So what would be appropriate for someone to say when you said, oh my gosh, Cully's leaving and I'm getting ready to change, my life's going to change? What would have been appropriate response? Because I think we all encounter this. We're all, holidays are going to be here before we know it. We're going to encounter people that are struggling. I mean, we might be struggling. So what's the appropriate response there?
I think in anything someone is willing to share, our response should not be a platitude. It should not be a fixie moment, unless someone specifically says, I need your help. Can you tell me how I should handle this?
Yes.
Totally different. If they are just sharing what's going on in their life, you acknowledge, I hear ya. That sounds hard.
Yeah.
And just acknowledging, I always try to say, I just believe that with every transition, whether good or bad, we grieve. Because it's a change. And, I'll be thinking of you.
That's great.
Because I can't take away what they're feeling. I can't fix it for them. People just want to be heard and acknowledged. Seen.
Yeah. So, the other thing that was said in that one sermon I was listening to is he said, people will come to know God in your miracles, if you share miracles, that happen, because God is always in the business of miracles.
Always.
People will also come to know God. And the one thing that changes people, that non-believers that want to know God, is when you suffer well.
Oh,
not
so
that something
true.
was healed, not that it was the outcome you wanted, but you suffered well throughout. And so that's when we start to really realize the depths of our everyday life are the ministry. They are the anthem of God's grace and mercy.
Yeah, and suffering well doesn't mean that you're happy all throughout.
Nope.
It doesn't mean that everything goes, everybody's healed and moves on and there's a happy ending. It means that you find joy and hope in the other things along the way, and that you sit with the Lord and you trust and you find your strength in Him. And you muddle through some days and you walk on clouds others.
I think when I see a faith that I'm drawn to, it's not a stoic faith necessarily, not a God is in control and He's going to work this out. It's not a dismissive faith like, God has a plan, or it is what it is. Not that sort of thing. But it's just acknowledging the harshness of what's happening and continuing to get up every day and do life and show up.
Yeah. And being willing to say the hard things with God, or admit that everything isn't okay, to be authentic with God, with others. Why do we, this is what keeps coming to my mind. I love what you said about our everyday lives being ministry and all of our interactions. Why do we feel like our ministry and our lives are only worth something and they only count if it's specific and defined? So if we do it a certain way, if we volunteer for a certain church thing, if we lead a certain Bible study, if we start a ministry, if we
have a podcast,
right, if we have write a book, whatever, lead a small group, why do we feel that it has to be that specific for it to count as ministry when every single interaction is an anthem to God?
I believe that those types of things, the structured things, are easier to count.
Ooh,
right?
Yes.
So you can put a tally mark. I led this Bible study where
Check.
Your everyday interactions, there's no tallies.
It's so true.
And it's a drop in a bucket, right? And that's not a bad thing. But what we don't realize, like you said, is it's that personal one-on-one. It's how you respond to the post office worker. I mean, I was in Vegas in August. It's how you went to Vegas, right? And the interaction that some of those people had. And I didn't slap a Jesus sticker on it. You know, I just saw people.
Yeah.
And that is Jesus. It's just see people.
I will say this too. I think it's harder. I think it is harder to live our lives as ministry in our everyday interactions with people versus a sectioned off period of time. You think about it. When you go to small group, you're buttoned up, you've got your things in order, you're being Miss Christian, you're the leader, then it ends.
I mean, I'm not. I'm normally bringing bourbon, remember? I did that in a small group in Texas.
Yes.
Well, but now I wouldn't do that.
Well, I mean, you might. Like, that's fine. But, I mean, we keep it together. If something's going on or we're impatient that day or we're frustrated, we will, in those situations, pull it together.
Yes.
Right? So it's a little easier to, be an anthem to God in those situations, I think, versus in your everyday one-offs.
Yes.
Not being on the phone when you go through the checkout line, like being intentional, or when you're having a crappy day, still finding a smile and a compliment to share with someone in those daily interactions. That can be a lot harder.
For sure.
Because you're not like thinking, okay, I'm in my Jesus mode. I'm in my Bible teacher mode. I'm in my podcast. I'm in my perfect people mode.
Yeah.
Do you think?
I agree. I think also those are the checklist things that we do from a legalistic standpoint to say that we're a Christian. I think,
somebody said to me the other day, I'm a part of lots of things right now, and I feel like I have to be, or I have felt, excuse me, that I have to do those things to not be important to God, but to fulfill my mission for God. But I'm beginning to realize as I spend time with Him that it's not about the amount of things that I do. That it is about it's about my quality time with Him and how I live my life. And I was like, wow, look at you growing.
It's the posture of your heart.
Yes.
When you encounter, back to Martha and Mary.
It's so true. But I will say, in the next breath, that person said, but I know that I have a couple of friends that will basically, whether they say it or not, will judge me because I'm not leading a small group anymore, or I'm not, leading this Bible study or whatever. I'm doing these other things, or I'm choosing just to rest with the Lord and choose this time for rest. I know that there will be people who judge me. And I was like, wow, well, if you're following God, you can't really argue with God. So I wouldn't.
Yeah, but you can just put a little Christianese turn and say, I'm on a radical sabbatical.
Oh, there you go.
I think that is interesting because, it's the quiet places of your life where you're really doing Jesus's work, and Jesus has time to speak to you and say, do you see that guy over there? He needs a smile. Do you see, it's harder to, when you're doing everyday ministry like that, you are in tune with God all day.
Yeah.
And you're so much more like Jesus. Not knocking anything else, not knocking Bible study or conferences or anything like that. But like you said, you're so in tune with Jesus. That's like boots on the ground, Jesus.
It's so true.
Right?
And that's the hands and feet.
Yeah.
Because not all those people are going to walk into a church or go to a Bible study or a small group. I mean, those people are already there.
Right.
They're going to get some Jesus at church and small group. But it's those other people out in the world where our lives and interactions with them, especially when we have the margin to be that person, can really point them constantly like a little compass straight to Jesus.
Yeah.
I don't know. Food for thought this week. I don't know. What is on your list of things to do? Sit down with your calendar. look at the things that are on it. What are the things that bring you joy? Now, I'm not saying that we only get to do things that bring us joy, because that is not the truth. But evaluate and sit with the Lord. He's bigger than all those things, right? He's bigger than all the troubles and all the things and all the calendars. But what is he calling you to do? Empowering you, giving you joy to fulfill for him.
I love it.
I need to do the same.
We'll see you next time
on The Center of the Saint.